Matt, hello.
Hi. Hello.
I believe that this is how we're starting. Hi, everyone. Welcome to another live version of the Dear Prudence show. I am your host, Dear Prudence, also known as Daniel M. Lavery, and I'm wearing all of my most masculine rings. Um, and you're Matt, and you're here with me, and you're my friend, and I'm so
Hello.
pleased.
I'm wearing a number of feminine rings, so just to fill out the whole
There
thing.
are exactly two kinds
The
of rings that you
two
can
kinds of
get
rings.
at Long Beach Pride, and that's where I choose to believe that we both got them. It's so good to see you. The last time I saw you, I think you had biked over to my house to bring me bread,
That's correct.
and I just think that's real wholesome and sweet of you.
That was good. Yeah, that was nice. I was on a real kick for a while where I was baking bread every week and biking it around the city, like like a little bespoke bread delivery service. It was very fulfilling.
Yeah, yeah. I've seen Kiki's delivery service. I get the
It's,
gist. I
it's
get the
exactly
vibe.
like that, but it was just a homemade challah, one loaf a day.
That sounds. You get one. You will get one.
One.
I'm
No
very
magic.
excited. No magic. I'm very excited that you're here. There will also be no magic. You know that we are starting with a doozy because I often text you for advice when I start doing the column every week, and I say, Matt, what should I do? And so I'm
Hmm.
really glad that you're going to be here with me tonight because this first one is just, it starts out bad
A
and it
real
gets
doozy.
worse. So we will open with just the worst kind of problem, and then we will slowly, slowly, slowly get better. Does that feel right?
I mean, it doesn't get it like there's like a I think like in problem importance, there's some fluctuation.
Yeah,
That's
fair
what I'll
enough.
say.
Fair enough.
I
I
disagree
will
with the
make no
host.
more claims about the tendency of any of the questions to go in one direction or the other, but I will start by reading our first letter, the subject of which is I reported my ex wife's new husband to ICE. Dear Prudence, 16 months ago, I came home from a work trip to find my wife of 13 years, Amanda, wanted a divorce. I knew we hadn't been in a good place. I drank and traveled for work too much, but she'd given no indication that divorce was on her mind. Amanda would only communicate through lawyers. She stopped talking to my family, who adored her, and her family, who I adored, stopped talking to me. I was devastated and left with so many questions. 2 months ago, my sister Beth sent me a picture of Amanda. Amanda had deleted her social media profiles, and all of her friends blocked me, so it took sleuthing for Beth to find the picture. In it, Amanda was 6 or 7 months pregnant. More sleuthing revealed that she was remarried to a man named Miguel. They'd allegedly been together for a year, but Beth wondered if they'd been having an affair. I was furious. Even if Amanda hadn't cheated on me, she'd rebuilt the life I still wanted with her in months. She was having another man's baby. I got incredibly drunk and did an unforgivable thing. I reported Miguel to ICE. I regretted it immediately. I abhor ICE and its tactics and the devastation it causes. I had no reason to believe Miguel had no documentation or was an immigrant. I don't know what to do. I'm terrified to reach out to and apologize to Amanda and Miguel, both because I don't want to hurt her anymore and because I'm terrified to learn that I might have caused someone's deportation. I know I need therapy, but the thought of admitting out loud how reprehensibly I behaved makes me feel like I'm going to faint. I don't know what to do. But if I don't take some kind of responsibility for my actions, I fear my self loathing will destroy me.
I got a couple of thoughts here.
Yeah, get us started.
Well, it's like one, I'm wondering about the nature of. I mean, number one, don't report anyone to ICE ever. Don't even
Yeah,
open your door for them.
yeah,
Don't talk to ICE. I don't know.
yep.
But like the what like the nature of the divorce, I feel like he is eliding some detail here.
Mm-hmm.
Um, like, oh, my drinking and also traveling was bad, but also no one will talk to me anymore. Feels like you're leaving out a large chunk of what happened. Um,
Yep.
so, like, to that point, I think you just leave them alone, right? Just leave them alone.
I am right there with you on that front.
Yeah.
There is no reason for you to contact either Amanda or Miguel The best thing that you can hope for and strive for is that you do not cause them any more harm than you already have.
Yeah.
That is your goal. And that's a tall order for you, I think. That's not like, oh, no worries, you'll be able to get that. You're going to need help not causing them more harm. And that's going to mean doing the things that make you feel like right now you're going to faint. But I think, Matt, as you were kind of suggesting, the end of the letter, if I don't take some kind of responsibility, I fear my self-loathing will destroy me. And the implication there is kind of like, I guess I kind of have to tell Amanda and Miguel so that they can see how much I hate myself, so that they'll have to forgive me. And
That is not the place to speak absolution here, I don't think.
Yeah, they need to not hear from you. There's no way that you could reach out and apologize in such a way that would be meaningful. You just did it. And again, I gotta say, if that's an example of what you do when you are drunk, I think you can go back and reread the first part of your letter where you say, I had no idea she was thinking about divorce, even though I drank too much. And it's just like, well, if that's what your drinking looks like, Jesus Christ. I imagine that
it's
she
like Paul the
probably,
Gestapo.
yeah, you said you find their tactics to be devastating and abhorrent. You say that you hate ICE, and yet the first thing that you did when you got drunk was you thought, well, his name's Miguel. Maybe I can use white supremacy to like, and just again, like, not that there are any circumstances under which it would have been better or worse, but just everything about the way that you had no information and just thought like, well, this is one way for a white person to hurt somebody. I'm going to give them a call. Yeah.
Let me search for any power to wield here against this person in a racist way. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think probably if you were to do some soul searching and some careful investigation, you might find some clues. But again, the whole thing there is like, I don't even want to concede that much ground. Even if Amanda had not shared things with you in a way that you felt entitled to, and even if she had divorced you really abruptly and you hadn't done anything on this scale, that's just life, man. Sometimes people break up with you and you don't feel like you got a good enough reason, or you don't feel like they gave you enough of a chance. And that hurts and it's painful. But that doesn't then mean, well, obviously you get so upset. Of course, you're going to try to, send your sister to stalk your ex's pictures on social media. Or of course, you're going to call up like a paramilitary organization that attempts to like harm the guy that she's raising a family with now. Like, no, you're not entitled to do that just because you didn't like the way she divorced you. She divorced you because she didn't like you. And just because she didn't do it in a way that you thought was fair doesn't mean that then you're justified in throwing a tantrum and trying to blow up her life and trying to harm this guy who has never done anything to you. You just want the life that he has. So,
also,
yeah,
like
I feel, go ahead.
Yeah. On a practical level, there's like nothing you can do here. I don't think. I'm not an expert, but like, there's nothing you can do here to like help them out now that you've called ICE on them. Like, you can't call ICE back and be like, takesy backsies.
I was just going to use that exact phrase weirdly.
Well, ICE is famous for their no takesy backsy stance.
Yeah,
it's in the Patriot Act.
I think part of what I'm seeing in this letter is a sort of sense of, okay, sure, sometimes I do awful things or unforgivable things, but then I feel so bad and I remember, I'm in my right mind the next day. Obviously, there's got to be an undo button, right? And I won't know how to live with myself if there isn't an undo button. And the problem that you're faced with right now is you cannot undo this. Yeah. You cannot ask Amanda and Miguel to forgive you. And you still have to live with yourself. That is the problem that is set before you right now. And so when you say things like, I feel like I want to faint and I don't know what to do, that makes sense to me. That seems like an appropriate response to your situation. But while you cannot undo this particular form of potential harm, and while you cannot repair these relationships, you can change your life. You can live your life in such a way that you know you will never cause this kind of harm again. You can work to make living amends in an ongoing way that, again, doesn't mean someday, 20 years from now, you'll be able to say, okay, that's been wiped clean. I basically undid that all as well. But you will be able to build an esteemable life where you don't cause this kind of harm. And I got to say, I think step one of this here is go to a meeting, go to an AA meeting. If you can't do AA, go to a secular equivalent of an AA meeting. Although I also want to shout out that AA has lots of non-religious and non-spiritual people who practice the steps. If you're not able to go to any of those in person, go to one over Zoom, but do something to address your drinking, because if you know that you do this kind of thing when you're drinking, you need to not drink.
I would also say donate some effort, or if you can't do that, some time or some money to organizations that are working against
Resisting ICE,
ICE in the community that you live in, perhaps.
Yeah.
Money's nice. Effort is better. The thing that these movements need most is like bodies.
Although I think in this particular person's case, I also wouldn't necessarily want him doing any kind of work that would put him directly into contact with people.
Oh no, God no.
So yeah, I think to look into recurring donations and to figure out ways that you can, again, not like 20 years from now, if I give this much money every month, it'll be as if this never happened. But that's something that you should look into. And then, man, beyond that, you got to tell people. And that doesn't mean you call up everyone you know and you make this announcement. Certainly, like, I don't trust your sister's judgment. Beth sounds almost as bad as you. I don't like Beth. I don't like how Beth's behaving. So, part of what's hard is it doesn't sound like you have a lot of people in your life whose judgment you trust and who are still willing to speak to you. It sounds like all the people in your life who had esteemable judgment are no longer talking to you, which can make careful self-reflection really difficult when all the wise people and the compassionate people have said, I can't talk to you anymore. Right now what you have is knowledge that what you did was wrong, but what's paired with that is just self-loathing. I can't live with myself. I can't be this kind of person. And what worries me about that is I think you're going to take that energy and say, this feeling is so unbearable. I have to find either some way to justify what I did or some way to convince myself it didn't really count so that I can live with myself. And that will get rid of the feeling of horror and like you're going to pass out temporarily. It will probably come back, but that won't actually undo the reality. So you will still be living with this reality. You will just have tried to displace your feelings onto somebody else. So whatever you do next, it needs to involve some kind of program of personal, relational, spiritual, emotional action that takes really seriously the fact that you have done something that you consider unforgivable, and that does not try to say, I'm sure you didn't mean it, or that's not really who you are. And again, that's not the same thing as saying you have to go say, I'm a monster for the rest of my life, and I can never, ever treat myself kindly or care about myself. I realize everyone needs to be able to live with themselves, but whatever you do next, it has to say, I did this thing. I really did. It was really me. And I regret it. And I want to try to not cause that same kind of harm, but there's just not a version of your life where you did not do this. And as much as that might feel like a death sentence right now, I think that there are going to be ways that you can work to put this to account if you pursue sobriety, if you pursue honest repair, if you pursue not compounding harm by making other people responsible for your feelings of guilt, and don't ever fucking call ICE again, and do what you have to do to be accountable for that. Sorry, I know I'm kind of going on, but like, you need to be accountable for this kind of thing, because you can't trust your own judgment here yet, right now. And so one of the reasons that you need to tell people about this is because you need help not doing it again. And I think with that, I will want us to move on. Again, all of this is like, I don't necessarily think that Miguel is at risk in the same way that the letter writer seems to believe that he is. So I'm operating less out of a place of like, how can we help this person that we know to be at serious risk, so much as how do we answer the person who says, I did something that I don't think is forgivable, but I also don't want to admit it to anyone, and I also don't want to face it. And so that's why I wanted to focus on that rather than anything else. So with that said, Will you read our next letter?
Oh yeah. All right. Um, sorry. Scroll down past this question that we just read. Um, Subject: Dying grandfather wants me to get married. Dear Prudence, my father's family is pretty conservative. You should live with your parents before marriage, live at home when you go to school. I moved 5 hours away for school, and then I moved to the other side of the country for my PhD, where I met my partner. My partner and I moved in together after a year. There were raised eyebrows because I didn't have a ring, and I don't want one, but my family has been nothing but welcoming and kind. My grandfather still doesn't know. It's easier that way. Now, 4 years later with the pandemic, my grandfather has outright said he wants to see his grandchild get married before he dies. And since I'm the only adult with a long term partner, the implication and the fact that he outright says it, that is making me guilty. My mother has also been implying that it's time to get engaged. In my head and with my partner, we're common law. We share finances, a house, and a life. We're married legally as our country's common law has the same protected rights as marriage. The paper doesn't mean anything. But my grandfather really wants this. He's 92 and blind. My partner says he's good with getting married to appease my beloved grandfather, and I feel guilty for denying my grandfather this. Getting married legally wouldn't change anything. It would be a hassle to plan. My immediate family lives on the East Coast, but it would make my grandfather happy. Should I do it?
Before we answer it, Matt, did you assume, as I did, that like common law marriage was just something that would happen if you lived with someone long enough?
Yes. Is it like an actual law?
I think it's actually a little bit more complicated than that, and I was kind of sad to
Okay.
learn that it's not just like if you have a roommate for 6 years,
You're
you
married.
might find out one day at the DMV they're like, "Oh, you two are married.
See,
Sorry,
that's really
sticking
that's
that
really
in
sweet to
Casey."
me. Yeah. Like
Yeah,
congratulations on your roommate wife.
yeah,
Cool.
you're accidentally married now.
Yeah. See, that's like a
Um,
fun sitcom sort of vibe. Is that not the case?
I apparently not. Apparently
Uh,
not. I think you
that's too
still have to
bad.
like fill out paperwork and all that. Um, I am aware that I am in a place these days where if I hear anything that's like, my family's kind of conservative and they want me to do something I don't really want to do to keep the peace, should I? Like, there's just no part of me that's like, yeah, you can go for that. Like, I'm just,
Yeah.
no.
No. I think no. It sounds like you don't want to. You say you don't want to. I don't want to do
Yeah.
this thing. Should I do it? The answer is no. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't really get where some of the ideas around like blindness felt not necessarily like it was coming from the letter writer, but it felt weirdly
Mm.
ableist or strange. Like if somebody loses their vision and then they want someone else to get married, you have to. That felt I didn't really understand. I mean,
I
I
think it was maybe
understand.
trying to like point out like failing health in some way, but
Sure, yeah, I
who
get the
knows?
pressure point of like I
Yeah.
really want this, and I'm 92, so I want it even more. But it just um, doesn't work for me. I guess is what I'm
It's
saying.
a dog won't hunt, as it
Yeah,
were.
that dog won't hunt. I feel
I
guilty for denying my grandfather this. Like, how does this hurt him?
Yeah, you're already comfortable telling lying to him about living with this guy. Why not just lie to him that you got married already?
Yeah,
Problem solved. Lies, more
yeah.
lies.
I just like if somebody is very old and they really, really want something, that's grounds to like maybe hear them out or have
Mhm.
a conversation and certainly treat them with affection and respect. But
Yeah.
just being 92 and saying I really want a married grandchild, that's not like I don't know. That doesn't fall to me. That doesn't fall into the category of like, oh, I really want to see the Grand Canyon before I die. Do you know what I mean? Like, oh, I've just got to have a married grandchild first.
I have
It's
to.
like,
Yeah.
okay,
All right. I
you'll be
the other
fine.
yeah the other thought I had was like the partner that seems to be okay with it.
Hmm.
Sounds like you got to talk to your partner because I don't know. Maybe he wants to get married. I don't know. It seemed like he seems fine with it.
Yeah,
I don't know. Maybe he just doesn't feel strongly one way or the other. I can't. That just sounds like a conversation that should maybe happen.
yeah. I'm not terrified for this letter writer. That like,
No.
the worst case scenario is that the two of you do a ceremony and it's slightly challenging to plan because of COVID, um, and then that's it. That's not. I don't necessarily see it as like that's the first slippery slope. Soon they're going to tell you they want you to have 8 children and exactly how to name them all, and you'll never have your own life back again. I don't think it's at that stage, but you know, all that's happened so far is that your grandfather has said one time, "Oh, I want to see a grandchild get married before I die." Okay, that's not, he's not like calling you every night sobbing. He's okay. Your mother
Yeah,
has been implying, yeah, that's like pretty typical family pressure on this kind of thing, that I think it's okay to just let your mom imply something and say like, "Sorry to hear that," or "Good luck."
yeah. Also, with like your traditionalist family, they might be using grandpa saying this once or twice as, an excuse to like put pressure on that thing that they want because of their, you know, traditional values or whatever you want to call them. Like they want this thing and they want to exert control over you, and they're using this thing as a lever to do that.
Yeah.
Is what it feels like to me a little bit.
Yeah. So with the caveat, both first, that like just my mental state in 2020 is just like no quarter to your family of origin. And then also that it doesn't sound like this has the potential to backfire or really damage your relationship with your partner. You would not be the first person who went through with a ceremony mostly to satisfy a group of relatives. And it doesn't seem like they've been applying pressure in such a way that's really like loathsome or unconscionable. Um, but gosh, if you just want to say to your grandpa, "Grandpa, I love you. I'm sorry to hear that. We're not getting married, but here's a here's something fun we did today," or "Here's something that I love about," like something that's about connection, and keeping him updated on your life and what you love about your partner. I think that would be fine. I think he would be fine. I think if your mom implied a couple times she thinks it's time for you to get engaged, you can just let her imply it, and it's fine. Yeah. By the way, we just had a quick question come in from somebody watching the show, which is that when, hopefully not soon, my religious mother passes away, how to handle religious themed condolences at the funeral. So my guess there is that the question asker, oh, there we go. Yeah, the follow up is, "I'm atheist and I don't want to be rude, but I also don't want to be hurt by platitudes." Matt, have you ever received religious condolences?
Oh yeah, I mean, I've only ever been to religious funerals in my life.
Mm-hmm.
Generally, for family members, like my whole family is all one religion, so I've only ever been to Jewish funerals, and like it's the sort of thing where I don't know, maybe I'm not sure what religion we're talking here, um, but as someone who's a pretty staunch non-believer and have been for my whole life, it's sort of like people are going to say what they're going to say at funerals, and it's not necessarily if they're giving you a religious platitude about this religious woman, it's probably not for you. It won't be for you. It won't be like
Mm-hmm.
now to make Brian believe in Jesus. Like that's not what it's about. I don't think it's about like that person's concept of death and the afterlife and God and spirituality and the universe, all that stuff. And I think it's sort of just like people are going to they're not hurting anybody by mourning in the way that they're going to mourn. Is
Mm-hmm.
my first thought.
Yeah. I think I'm very much on that page. I think the only place that I would generally give people more latitude at a funeral than I would in other circumstances, because funerals are tough to get through and people don't always know what to say. And oftentimes they'll reach for something that sounds comforting or that's really familiar, and not necessarily the truest expression of their internal experience. But I would say if anybody wanted to say something along the lines of like, she's at peace now, or about how her faith gave her comfort, or the way that they share her faith, all of that, I think I would just say something like, "Thank you so much. She would have loved to have heard that. She felt the same way," or just, "That's lovely. Thank you." All of which are fine. If anybody goes so far as to say, like, "And what is your religious outlook?" or "Do you know
Yeah.
where you'll go after you die?" or veers into proselytizing, I think there you can just say, "I'm so sorry, you'll have to excuse me." I mean, the thing there is like the one upside, I think, of being the bereaved is you have more latitude to just say, "I'm so sorry, I can't do this right now." And people don't take offense, or assume that it has anything to do with what they were saying. And I'm saying all this, by the way, assuming that these are people you don't plan on seeing a lot of again. These aren't like your siblings who are always trying to persuade you not to be an atheist. if these are just well-meaning people who you don't see a lot of, absolutely do that. If they are really pushy, or if there's somebody that you see a lot of, anything up to and including saying, I'm going to take a walk, I'll be back in a minute, or just, I'm going to go check on the canapes, or can you go check on the canapes? Like, give them some fake task, like, oh, I'm worried there aren't enough napkins and I'm just overwhelmed. Can you talk to the, funeral director and see about the napkins? Anything along those lines, any kind of distraction is, I think, totally legitimate. I also get that you don't want to be rude. And I think one of the things that is hard about ceremonies like funerals and marriages and so on is that for non-religious people, or for atheists, or for agnostic people, often the onus of politeness falls to them. And that's not to say that atheists and agnostics and non-believers can't be plenty rude in other circumstances, or at funerals. But I think often the kind of sentiment is, it's a funeral and the person who died might have been spiritual or religious. And so anyone who wants to say anything religious or spiritual kind of should, and everybody else should just say, like, that's great. I also will just put in a real plug for, sometimes I just lie. I've definitely, and again, I do this more in a situation where I think I'm not going to see someone again, but sometimes someone says they'll pray for me, or they really want me to come to their church. And if I'm not feeling up to a fight, I'll just say, like, that's great. Thank you. Yes, I am of your faith. And that's, that's an option. It's not always the best option. I would not do that with someone I planned on seeing a second time, but I definitely remember a couple of months ago, someone kept telling me about how great their church was and how I'd probably just had a bad experience with other churches. And if I could just go to their church and the pastor there was a lesbian, I'd have a great time. And then came back and gave me a card for their church again later. And I was just, not getting anywhere with the sort of polite, no, thank you. And so finally I was just like, this is great. I will see you there next Sunday. I can't wait. And
and also with this, I think it's like, it's one thing to set boundaries or whatever. If your aunt is emailing you every week for the next year, like, what do you think Sharon and Jesus are bowling in heaven right now? Like, if that's the thing, that's like a totally different story. That if they just say they hit you with one, may their memory be a blessing, you could just, say thank you and go check on the canapes. Something canapé related for sure.
Yeah. But it is hard. I agree. And it is difficult when you really don't want to be rude, and you really don't want to, demean somebody else's sincere beliefs. But if somebody else makes a claim about what has happened to someone else who has died, and you're just kind of standing there thinking, like, well, we just, we're not there. We haven't died. It's just hard to, there's not really a great way to say anything along the lines of, like, I'm glad that brings you comfort, but it means nothing to me. And that's hard. So again, I hope this is many, many years in the future, and that you don't have to think about it for a while, but it is a little challenging. Let's move on to just a good old-fashioned affair problem, which is just our bread and butter, nice and easy, no big deal.
Smooth and easy.
Yep. Subject is cover up resentment. Dear Prudence, several years ago, my good friend Tom tearfully confessed that he was having an affair, which he ended shortly thereafter. Though I'd previously been friendly with both his longtime girlfriend and the affair partner, I abruptly stopped talking to both of them because of how guilty I felt about knowing his secret. Tom and his girlfriend are still together, and he no longer has any intention of telling her what happened. I now feel incredibly resentful of how the situation played out. I thought I had been helping hold Tom accountable for the ways that he had disrespected and manipulated both women, but I now realize that I unwittingly helped cover it up. Tom's very important to me, and I don't want to create conflicts in our friendship, but I still feel hurt, angry, and resentful that I have to shoulder the guilt over having been Tom's accomplice while he, quote, got away with it. Do I bring it up now and encourage Tom to come clean? Or is it too late, and do I just need to come to terms with how I acted?
Ooh. Doggy.
Yeah.
I feel like my feeling is like you got to talk to Tom. I think.
Yeah.
Right. You gotta come clean to Tom about how bad you feel, and you got to take Tom's temperature on this whole thing. And I don't think it's not necessarily your business to blow up somebody else's relationship. I wouldn't
But it
say.
wasn't, you didn't seek this information out. It's not like you were going through Tom's phone. Like Tom
No,
couldn't
no,
be
exactly.
weeping. Yeah, yeah.
And like, it's tough
I
to
cut it in
juggle
and I said
your.
the thing you were gonna say.
What's that?
I just realized I had like interrupted you to say the thing you were about to say. And you're like, yeah, I
Oh,
was getting to that.
fine. No, we're just so on the same. We're so copacetic. I can read your mind. Um,
It's the rings.
it's our matching rings. That's right. It's something I put in the bread a couple months ago. I yeah, but I just think it's like, yeah, you were not seeking this information. It is not necessarily your business to like get into this relationship and sort of blow it up because you feel bad. It is not your fault. You're not the person that did something necessarily like wrong here, like capital W wrong. Your friend put you in a very compromised position by coming clean to you about this and then doing nothing about it.
Mm-hmm.
So you got to talk to Tom and take Tom's temperature on this. And my thought is, you got to see where he's at, and if he doesn't have a satisfactory answer for you, you can just wash your hands of the whole situation.
Yeah, I think starting with Tom is the right move too, and I think because there is often that question of, look, what is my business and what's not my business, and how much business should I be thinking about when it comes to friendships, and I think part of what's at stake here is Tom created this conflict by sharing this information with you and then doing nothing, or doing close to nothing. And I think part of what you want to share with him is not only like, I resent that you put me in that position because you felt guilty. You unburdened your guilt at my expense, which I think actually, Matt, is part of why I was so concerned about for our first letter writer, because I think when people feel really guilty and they just want to focus on getting rid of the feeling, they often compound the hurt that they cause other people. And so, like, I don't want to encourage people not to feel guilty in the sense of like, just do whatever you want and don't feel bad. But to figure out the difference between like, okay, what am I specifically ashamed of and how can I try to start to make that right? Even if making that right doesn't mean this person and I are cool together forever, versus how do I get rid of this feeling of guilt? Because then you're just going to do really, really crazy stuff. Sorry, trying to wean that word out of my vocabulary. It doesn't always work. Doing really unpredictable, sometimes painful things because you're just like, someone else needs to take this feeling away. And so
You're seeking absolution anywhere you can, sort of like grasping for purchase for it,
right.
It's clumsily worded, but you
Right.
know what I mean. Yeah.
And so part of what I think you can also say to Tom is like, it put me in a really uncomfortable situation. It wasn't information that I sought out. And I used to be friends with your girlfriend and the woman that you were sleeping with. And because I didn't know how to keep this secret from them, I just stopped talking to them and I missed them. And that was really sad. And I didn't know what else to do because I did not want to be responsible for blowing this up. And I also knew I couldn't just put on a happy face and continue my friendships. So, Tom, I love you. You are a really dear friend of mine, but you really, really hurt me. And your inaction here really hurt me. And you can do that, I think, while also taking responsibility for like, I chose to turn my discomfort on the two women and to just cut them out of my life, which is clear you didn't intend as like sexist or dismissive, but like, I think it's a shame that your friend was doing something sneaky and hurtful and he told you, and then you stopped talking to the two women involved, including one who has just like done nothing wrong here, and then just never spoke about it with him again, and he just kind of get to skate on and do whatever he felt like. So that's something that I think you should talk about with him too, is just like, I don't love that I did that, and I don't love the way that this played out, and I want to undo it. So maybe the question there is like, do you want to reach out to either of those women? Not necessarily because you're like, I got to tell them right away, but do you want to try to offer an apology to either of them? Do you think that that hurt them? Do you think that they miss you? Do they think even if they don't want to be friends with you again, they would appreciate hearing an apology? And I still agree, Matt, with what you were saying. Talk to Tom first, but I think you should really consider doing that. And I think you should tell him that you're considering doing that. Yeah. So yeah, it's not too late. Coming to terms with how you acted does not mean just saying like, I did what I did and there's nothing I can do about it now. I think too often people seem to think that that's what coming to terms with something means, which is just like, well, I made my bed, I got to lie in it. It's just like, even without completely blowing up Tom's spot, I think you could probably reach out to both of those women and say, like, a few years ago, I stopped talking to you, and I'm really sorry for that. It had nothing to do with anything that you had done. It had to do with my own discomfort about something that's not mine to disclose. I I really, really regret how I treated you, and I wish that I had done it differently. Like, you could say that without blowing up Tom's life. And even if they didn't want to be friends again, at least they would know, they hadn't done anything wrong.
Yeah. Well, the woman that was the cheater, that Tom cheated with, also did
Yeah.
something pretty wrong.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know how involved she
Yeah. Yeah.
was in
Not.
the whole social circle or how much she knew.
Yeah.
I don't,
That's true.
you're right though. Yeah. We
I don't know
just,
Tom's affairs.
yeah, literally.
The
Um,
affairs. The
but
affairs
yeah,
to Tom.
absolutely. And there's still stuff that you can do even if Tom decides not to come clean. And certainly if you have that conversation with his girlfriend, she may very well say to Tom, like, what's going on?
Yeah.
But that's not the same thing as, like, I don't know, saying it in pig Latin. Like, you're not giving her everything either.
Yeah.
Okay, this next one, I'm excited that you get to read it.
I'm gonna try and do it in a calm, reasoned fashion.
Yeah.
I'm just going to be normal, and I'm going to read it in a normal way. Subject: Karen is my name, not a pejorative. Dear Prudence, I have become alarmed at the growing prevalence of the use of my first name as a denigrating term to describe a certain type of woman: white, entitled, angry, and ignorant. While I am white, this is, I believe, the only one of those flaws I possess. Growing up, I was taught to treat all people with respect. Also, I am an introvert and thus mortified by the idea of creating a scene, such as the type that are attributed to the women who are labeled Karens. To be honest, I feel so humiliated by the use of my first name in this manner, I'm afraid to tell it to people for fear of being mocked. I have recently been considering changing it legally, but I hesitate for two reasons. First, I'm on disability and the cost of the legal process of changing one's name is almost prohibitive. And second, I was my mother's first and only daughter after giving birth to 5 sons. It was a special name for her, one she had chosen years before. I am so upset by this trend, I just don't know what to do. Do you have any advice for a Karen who isn't a dick? Do you? Do we?
Some, yeah. Not all of which even is actually dismissive.
Sorry.
No. I mean, I do in some ways feel dismissive about parts of this letter. Certainly, that third sentence, I think we could spend a little time with. Yeah, I can also imagine that it feels a little surreal to have the actual first name Karen this year, and then to have that become this moniker that represents a particular type of hostile, grievance-driven white woman who attempts to kill other people by calling the police with a smile on her face. Like, that's pretty intense. And you're quite right. Like, that's not you. That's the representation of a particular habit, trend, pattern. And unfortunately, it's one of those things where I think you cannot go around asking people not to use a term that became very popular. Like, there's no if you go down the road of, like, well, maybe I can ask people not to use that name. Maybe I can ask them to, go back to something else. That will not work. So I don't want to advise you to try to dissuade people from using that term. What's that? The Barbara Streisand effect? Is that a thing?
The Streisand effect is the name. Yeah.
Yeah. And I don't even remember exactly what the effect is. I just remember
it was the more I think the short version was like, oh, like, the more you try and get people to not criticize something you for something, the more they're going to zero in on it. It's it's from the South Park episode, I think.
Right.
It was like they did something where they were, like, making fun of Barbara Streisand, and then she sued them, and then everyone was like, Barbara Streisand's crazy person or whatever. It just, like, made it worse, just compounds it.
Yeah. I know this isn't exactly on the same level, but, like, within a month of my coming out, my first post-transition name was Daniel Mallory Ortberg, and now it's Daniel M. Lavery. But within, like, a few weeks, the other Daniel Mallory, who I had not previously known existed, but was just, like, a handsomer, more successful author named Daniel Mallory had like a write-up about him in the New Yorker about various like lies that he had told professionally to get ahead. And I was just like, oh, I just came out and a handsome cis guy with my exact name has been exposed as a fraud. I need to go back inside for a month. This is too much. Like, it was very weird. It was very surreal. And for a while, I think my Twitter handle was the other Daniel Mallory. So, you know, not for nothing. It's weird when your name is associated with something that's not you.
Yeah, there's and if you look in history books, there's only one person that's like ever been noted with my last name, and it's one of the Bielski partisans who betrayed them. So it's, you know, I understand.
Yeah. So all of which is to say, I understand that this bothers you. I understand that there are times when you find it frustrating and that there are times that you take it personally. That makes sense to me. I don't find that ridiculous. I don't think that you can control something that's already out there. I also think that it will not be quite as much an of the moment thing as it is and has been the last few months. It will not always be at this level of at the forefront of everyone's mind. This will pass. I don't think changing your name is something that you want. And then I think the stuff that I want to encourage you to not take personally, or not feel quite so aggrieved about, is this idea that like naming a particular style of white aggression, white passive aggression, always means like you are being personally indicted and just exhausts you. And it's like, this is also a really true harmful thing that happens and that like actively endangers people of color and specifically Black people, which is again, not to say like, don't have any feelings about this, other people are suffering more, but I do think it will help to put this in perspective that like probably worse than having your name associated with a particular type of cruel white woman is having that person come after you. So part of what's happening right now is that people are describing a situation that has been happening a lot and that harms and terrorizes them. And that's important. It's maybe not happening in the most useful to you way, but like it's good that people are able to put a name to it and to identify it as a thing rather than just like, oh, I'm sure it was a misunderstanding or I'm sure it was a one-off, that people are able to say like, no, it's a fucking pattern. This happens. Here's what it looks like. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah. I have a couple of thoughts, and that's like, one is, remember when the word was Becky, like 3 whole years ago, and all the Rebeccas are still fine. I recall, I think, talk to a Becky, commiserate. I mean, I was really stuck on the beginning where she was saying that like, she's none of those things equivocally. Like, you know, like I know that I'm good. So, can you please tell me I'm good? And that to me rankled me a little bit. And and I guess my response was less kind than yours. And I was trying to figure out a really nice way to say grow up without saying grow up. But like, this too shall pass.
I mean, if you are not entitled, angry, and ignorant, that's good. And
just keep doing that in normal.
Yeah. And I think there was something a little huffy about like, while I'm white, I think that's the only one of those flaws I possess. Like, it felt like one step away from you saying, oh, so it's a crime to be white now? Which is a sort of self-pity and hostility and exaggeration that is a dangerous road to go down. So let go of that angle of defensiveness. Maybe be more alarmed about what these women are doing. You don't say like, people stop me on the street and say your name's Karen and give me a hard time. You just say like, I'm so upset at what I'm seeing around me that I'm thinking of changing my name. And that to me suggests like, you're not actually being harmed. You're not actually being threatened. So you can adjust your reaction accordingly.
You're so much nicer than me. And I will admire you forever.
This is my job. And so if I get mad at people all the time, I would maybe not get money from it. So I have a certain investment in doing that. All right. We should move to the next one a little bit quicker because Danny doesn't have good time management skills. And so would you please read the missing bridesmaid letter?
Okay. Subject, missing bridesmaid. Dear Prudence, I had a small, socially distanced wedding last month. While most guests, with our blessing, chose to Zoom in, we still hope to have a small, in-person group composed of our immediate family and wedding party, wearing masks and separated by household. Two wedding party members dropped out. One was across the country and couldn't afford to quarantine before and after. The other is within driving distance and had no particular medical concerns for herself or her family. While I swore to myself, especially as a medical professional, it made the most sense not to come, I find our friendship feels changed for me. It was a big deal for me to have her in the wedding party, and while she was upfront with me about not coming, I find myself resentful that she didn't make the effort when others did. I got a yay text when she attended the Zoom, but not even a token gift or card was sent. My logical brain understands, but my emotional brain is hurt. Should I get over it and resume the friendship as if nothing happened? I don't even particularly feel like having a conversation about my hurt, as I don't think whatever she says will make me feel differently.
Sounds like they answered their own question.
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah.
I mean, it sucks that
You
they
don't
didn't get
want
to a card, but
yeah. If you just want like our permission to say like I'm kind of annoyed with my friend, I don't really want to talk about it. I just kind of want to be a little more distant and hurt. That's fine. You're allowed to do that.
yeah, it sucks.
It's not illegal. Yeah.
There's a lot of expectations around weddings, and you set yourself up for certain things, and if they don't happen, you feel upset.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you're just going to be a little annoyed with your friend and a little miffed and you cool down in a year or two, that's fine. And even if you don't, I think it's not unusual for weddings to signal either like the moment where somebody's friendship with you starts to like, oh, we're just now getting close. This is when we really start to get to know each other, or like the wedding is the moment where you're like, yeah, we're on our last legs here.
I think it's also, perhaps useful to consider, like, I don't know what driving distance means in this case. As an avowed non-driver, that could mean half an hour, could mean 5 hours. And one of those is like, I'm not driving 5 hours right now.
And I know, like, had no particular medical concerns for herself or her family, and it's like, well, except for COVID, right? Like
COVID, yeah.
I get that what you're saying is like they don't have like pre-existing conditions or they're not at high risk, but like it's still a medical concern. I don't know. I have to say, like, if I were in your position, as much as I would want people to celebrate me and buy me stuff and pay attention to me, if I had a dear friend who was just like, I love you, I can't run that risk right now, I would not be mad at them. I just don't think that makes sense.
I think it's okay to be miffed about not getting a card, honestly.
Yeah, of course.
I mean, you can say that. Your friend's getting married. I don't know. Yeah.
But yeah, if you don't want to, you don't have to. You're just allowed to be annoyed. I don't really get that line about it was a big deal for me to have her in the wedding party. I wish I could get those details. Like, ooh, had she wronged you and this was like a redemption effort? Were you doing it as a favor? What was going on with that? But we don't know. It's shrouded in mystery.
Dang.
We'll never know. You are allowed to be annoyed with your friend, and you don't have to talk about it. You can just be mad. That's fine. No one's going to die.
Yeah. They might be annoyed with you for having a pandemic wedding. Is the other
exactly, yeah.
Like, it just,
and then you can
be miffed at each other for a little bit. It's okay.
Yeah. Okay, let's move on to this next one. Dating at work, which I don't think is a portmanteau that's going to catch on. But I appreciate the effort, nonetheless. Dear Prudence, I am a 20-something professional, and this week I was asked out by a guy from my team at work. I wasn't taken completely by surprise and agreed to a first date. Patrick is cute and funny, and I'm looking forward to it. I'm not head over heels for him. I never am at the beginning of a relationship, but there's certainly some attraction there. If he weren't a colleague, I would take this casually and see where it goes. However, two things give me pause. First, our team is small, and we will be working closely together for at least the next 3 years. I have a good track record of staying friendly with my exes, and Patrick seems like the sort who would handle a breakup maturely, but I'm very aware that if this doesn't work out, it could throw a serious wrench into our working life. Second, the loneliness of quarantine is making me doubt the source of my feelings. I'm worried that I am not necessarily after this specific man's affection, but that I am just soaking up human contact wherever it presents itself. This wouldn't be a problem if he were just an acquaintance, but since we'll continue to see each other in a professional context, I want to be deliberate about where my desire comes from. The last thing I want is to date him until the shininess of the new relationship wears off, realize that it was the quarantine talking the whole time, and then have to live with a work breakup. Any advice on untangling these feelings? Any clarifying questions I should ask on the date? We are already in each other's, quote, bubbles, if that makes a difference.
Mm.
Can I tell you what my first thought was?
Yeah, please.
I was like, I did edit this down a little bit. The letter writer is a woman. I was just like, do you think you might be gay? Which is such a reach, I know, but it was just
That's
like,
a big reach.
it is a reach, but it was just like, I'm not head over heels for him. I never am at the beginning of a relationship.
Oh,
Just
sure.
all this like stuff about how like you mathematically like approach your interest in guys, and I was just like, just throwing it out there. It's a total curveball. I may be way off, but just I don't know.
Yeah.
Do you like guys? Maybe not. It's fine. All right, I'll leave it. That one's done.
No, I was just gonna say, like, I feel like you're so worried about all this ancillary stuff that it feels like the answer is don't date him. Maybe.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like it seems like there's so much, like you're doing all this
3
math about
years?
it.
Yeah.
You got all this stuff that you're really worried about outside of going on a single date with this nice man. You're writing into an advice column about it. I think this is you telling yourself that maybe perhaps you don't want to go on a date with this guy.
Yeah.
Or go on a date and talk to him about your concerns about it. I don't know. Like,
Yeah.
it just seems like you're not enthused. It doesn't sound like the letter writer is very enthused about the whole situation.
Yeah, which is fine. You don't have to be like wild about everybody you go on a date with. But I agree. Like the potential downsides, it's a small team. You're going to be working very closely together for 3 years. You don't know him that well yet. He seems cool, but like a lot of people seem cool, and then you end up with a first letter writer who maybe seemed cool to Amanda on their first date. I'm sorry, I'm sure Patrick is not like that guy. But
wow. Leave
yeah,
Patrick alone, Danny. Jesus.
I think it's fine to date someone because you're a little bit lonely or starved for human contact. I don't think that that's necessarily something that you can like get rid of or somehow perfectly take into account. I think it's fine to just say like, who knows if it's this guy in particular or just that I've been like alone for 6 months in my apartment. But yeah, if you have this many questions and you're going to be working super closely together, don't go out with him. Tell him you thought about it and you just realize there's too many potentials for complications. You think he's great, but you just want to keep things professional. And then, don't date him.
Yeah, like if you're that starved for human contact, there's ways to get it otherwise.
Yeah, look for other relatively safe or like risk sensitive ways of potentially dating or hooking up with either a friend or an acquaintance or a stranger that you can go get tested with, but not somebody that you have to work with because
yeah.
Also, it's fine if you're not gay. I just want to throw it out there. This is a possibility. In part, my whole thing was like, things are like fine, but also like something's not quite right. Oh, I'm a transsexual. Mm-hmm. And so sometimes it can surprise you. Sometimes you're just like, am I hungry or am I a lesbian? I'm a lesbian. And then you figure it out, and that's nice.
I think it's important maybe at the end of all the questions to just toss that in. Ask yourself, letter writer, are you hungry? Are you a lesbian?
Are you both? Do you need a sandwich?
Do you need a sandwich? Do you need to get a sandwich with another lady at a restaurant?
Yeah. Okay, I don't think this particular framing is going to help our last letter writer, which I think is a little bit more connected to the question we got earlier about funerals. And, I really feel for them. Would you read that for us?
Yeah, this is a little heavier. My heart goes out to this person, but I will commend them on their headline writing because it's very good. Subject, dead man walking, Pollyanna talking. It's good. I was diagnosed with incurable cancer in February. The prognosis with treatment is 3 years, give or take. The treatment is not too draining and I'm responding well. I've worked to escape some of my fears and expectations and I'm okay with where I'm at. Unfortunately, one of the few friends I've told accidentally spilled the news to our friend Stevie, who, along with her now deceased husband Jared, I've known for almost 50 years. She's been a dear friend, but she has irrepressible woo-woo tendencies, and we've periodically butted heads over that, which is one reason I didn't tell her. I knew she'd take an aggressively positive tack because she knows things. I don't want to be stern with her because she's still flailing after Jared's death, which was also in February, and the other reason I didn't tell her. I'm sure she's hurt, because I didn't tell her sooner, but I didn't want to deal with her magical thinking. I've told her several times about how important it is to set aside my expectations, and she tells me she gets it, then follows up with, but I know you're going to make it. This unsettles my hard fought peace and also highlights the obvious fact that I'm not going to make it. It's seriously distressing. So, how do I gently get her to keep her opinion to herself and let me do this my way?
Mm, I'm really sorry. And I think one of the things that I want to encourage this letter writer to do is, if you want to, and if you can deputize a friend to do this. I
Mm-hmm.
want you to give yourself like carte blanche to be like, I've been diagnosed with incurable cancer. I'm going to ask my friends for favors.
I think the friend
Um,
that spilled the beans can be deputized to do this, was my
I think
exact
that's
first thought.
a great idea. Is just
Yeah.
like, I need you to communicate this to her. I need you to make it crystal clear. I don't care how you do it, and I don't want to be bothered with the details, but make it happen.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And it's so obvious that this is not about the letter writer to this woman
yeah,
to me. Like this is about the loss of her husband of what seems like a very long time.
yep.
Um, and she's looking for something to be positive about. She was
Of
already
course.
inclined to do it, and right now that's all she has, and it's understandable. But I think it can be made clear to her that like I think that bit really stuck out to me about my hard fought piece, and it's like
Yeah,
that's so lovely for this letter writer that they are in this place where they're accepting it and at peace with it almost, and for they don't deserve this this friend to be to destroy that.
yeah. I think Matt, that really gets to part of what was challenging about that earlier question about funerals, which is just like whenever it comes to people discussing death, often, even if that person is speaking from a place of real like obstinacy, or they're not listening, or
Yeah,
they are turning to faith or optimism in a way that is painful for somebody else. I think one of the things that's hard is we often do feel a sense of like, well, you're also grieving and you're also trying to process the like absolutely unimaginable finality of death, which,
yeah,
you know, kind of traditionally fills all human beings with at least a certain degree of trepidation, if not just horror and please anything but that.
mm,
So as you say, I often feel like it's hard because even when someone's like, "This is painful for me," the actually dying person, there's also a part of you that feels like, God, but I get why you feel this way, and I get why you're nervous, and I get why you want to say these things. And so I would just say, like, you can feel all of that compassion for her that you need to. That's really clear. But man, oh man, she can talk to anyone in the world who wasn't just diagnosed with incurable cancer about this. You know,
yeah. I don't mean
like
to laugh, but yeah, yeah,
no, like they have that whole like where to dump in and where to dump out theory about
sure.
dealing with grief, and I just think it's a
Mm-hmm.
pretty good one a lot of the time. And in this case, like you know, I want a lot of good things for Stevie. I want a lot of places where she's the person who gets like front center stage to talk about her feelings. I want a lot of that for her. I don't want that for her with you while you're trying to focus on
Yeah,
both
and I
like
think
enjoying the good time you have right now and also not losing sight of the fact that this is good time right now, and it doesn't mean that my incurable cancer went away.
yeah, it's good to get a friend also because like she might be in a place where after 7 months of like hardcore grieving, you kind of lose perspective in like where you're allowed to center yourself or not because you do become the center
Mm-hmm.
of a very small universe of people trying to help you. So like she probably has lost sight of that, and having a friend be direct with her, which a friend will be more direct with her than you could ever possibly be. I
Yeah,
think
yeah,
is a good tack.
yeah. I agree. If for whatever reason that friend is not available or you don't trust
Mm.
them to handle it, I also just hope that you're able to say to them like that caused Stevie and me a lot of unnecessary pain, and I wish you hadn't done it. Um, Again, you can just tell Stevie what you said to us, or just even like, I can't hear that right now. You need to stop. That's still loving. That's not cruel. That's not hostile. That's not demeaning her own loss. It's just really clear. And I think to not get drawn into an argument about it and just say, like, you need to stop right now is the best way through that. And again, let as many friends know as you can. If you hear somebody saying within earshot of me that I'm going to be fine, or they just know something about my prognosis, given that I am conserving my energy as I fight my cancer, please take over shutting that down. And I'm really sorry. It's really hard when someone thinks that they're being helpful and they are, in fact, making things much, much worse. Matt, you make everything better. You don't make things worse.
Thank you. You make everything better.
You bring me bread, and you wear wonderful rings that match mine.
Yeah. You send me beautiful photos of a dog when I'm recuperating from surgery.
He's really, really good. I'm so sorry that none of you can see Bonbon.
God, folks at home, gotta get a load of this dog.
Folks at home, you should get one of these dogs. He's so good.
Like a little
He's a
gremlin.
genius. You know what he did today? Sat
what did he do?
multiple times.
By himself?
Sat down on the ground.
Holy Moses. What a guy.
It was astonishing. I was truly bowled over. He
invented it.
He is so good at sitting, and he is so bad at going on walks. All he wants to do on a walk is sit and sit and sit and sit and look at me, or run as fast as anything has ever run until I fall over.
How long can he run? He's like so small.
Not very long. Yeah, I mean, it's like
to say, how long can he really keep that up, man?
If you put like a sandwich on a firecracker, like half a block, and then it's gonna get weighted down. Which I would like to do someday. I would like to put a sandwich on a firecracker, and I would like to race it against I won't. It's unsafe.
If you want to do it like in two different locations, I'm just saying, I'm pretty good at math.
You're pretty good at drawing. Maybe you could draw it for me.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
I promise next time that we do a live show, Bonbon will be present, and I will show off all the tricks that he is capable of doing, and
like sitting.
I will race him against a sandwich. It's going to be great. Matt, thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you for having me.
I just think you're terrific, and we're going to say goodnight, everyone. Goodbye. Good luck with all of your problems. Have a sandwich if you're hungry. Consider lesbianism if you're waffling about a guy who seems nice, but you just can't really get that worked up about. And maybe you're not a lesbian, and that's totally fine too. I just think you should give it a look.
Maybe you're just hungry.
And maybe you're not. Yeah. Maybe both. And then race your dog. Okay. Good night, everyone. Thank you.
Bye.